But at the end of the day, nobody is owed a designer necklace. Hi there, my name is Tessa, and I actually can't believe how upset people are about the Vivienne Westwood Nana collaboration. For anyone out of the loop, back in October it was announced that the luxury fashion house would be celebrating the 25th anniversary of the manga's publication with a special collaboration. Initially it seemed as though this would be limited to a collector's edition volume, but on November 13th they released several pieces of clothing and jewelry inspired by the series' iconic characters. As a surprise to no one, it sold out almost instantly, and fans swarmed to the internet to complain not only about the limited quantity of items, but also the collection's price point and designs. But is that what they're mad about? Or is it that they have to come to terms with the fact that one of their niche interests is actually incredibly mainstream?
The Nana and Vivienne Westwood collab just dropped last night, and the fans are pissed. The fans in question.
I was already well into my manga journey when Nana was serialized in English in 2005, and although it wasn't my favorite series, it was definitely in the rotation. The author, Yazawa, was known for incorporating fashion into her manga. I mean, her two series before Nana, Neighborhood Story and Paradise Kiss, literally had aspiring fashion designers and models as the main characters, and Nana followed in their footsteps, with the character's style taking notes from Japanese street fashion. Although Hachi dresses in a softer way that takes inspiration from the Mori girl subculture, Nana and her bandmates were heavily influenced by the British punk scene, specifically Vivienne Westwood. Yazawa has spoken about her love for the brand at length, and throughout the manga she made repeated references to their designs, to the point that some Japanese magazines even released shopping guides for the characters' wardrobes. Vivienne Westwood had started selling clothes back in the 1970s, releasing designs that epitomized the era's anti-establishment sensibilities. Originally, she was inspired by the punk movement's political activism, and her clothing challenged gender norms, included elements of fetish wear, and had a sort of DIY aspect with safety pins, spray paint, and artificial distressing. It was also around this time that she began dressing members of the punk band Sex Pistols, which is Nana's favorite band in the manga and one of her main style inspirations.
What's actually wrong with what I'm wearing?
You look so bloody boring, I cannot believe it.
By the 1980s, Vivienne had become disenchanted with the punk scene, finding it was overrun by people who only cared about the aesthetic but not its values, and her designs took a more historical approach as a way of commenting on British high society. It was at that time that she launched her namesake label, making her part of the capitalistic establishment that she had once fought against. And by the 1990s, the brand was showing at Fashion Week, had dozens of international stores, and was being worn by the likes of Drew Barrymore, Helena Bonham Carter, and Sarah Jessica Parker. Around the same time, Japanese youths were walking the streets of Harajuku in alternative fashion styles like Gyaru, Decora, Lolita, and Visual Kei. And Vivienne Westwood's designs became a constant presence in the local fashion scene, not only because of their fondness for brand names, but because of the label's associations with punk style. And to this day, the best place to hunt for vintage Vivienne Westwood is Japan.
They think I'm a lucky girl, but I just don't wanna one. Everybody jealous about me.
Now, Nana was definitely popular in the 2000s. Like, it was literally one of the highest selling manga for several years in a row. But it felt like it had more of a cultural impact in Japan than in the United States. For instance, at conventions, which yes, I used to go to, you were far more likely to see people dressed up as characters from Sailor Moon, Inuyasha, or in High School Host Club, or Fruit Baskets, than to see girls dressed up as Nana or Hachi. In the 2010s, interest in the series declined after it went on hiatus because of Ayazawa's health issues, but in the 2020s, it made a comeback in the West thanks to TikTok. This happened to line up with a rise in overall interest in Vivienne Westwood, with the brand's orb necklaces becoming one of the most coveted items of 2021 and the most duped of 2022. Because Vivienne Westwood was such a big part of Nana's visual identity, the two went hand in hand with one another, and they were a lot of people's entry point into edgy fashion and manga. Because they weren't as ubiquitous as, say, Naruto or Chanel, a lot of new fans positioned them as a sort of if you know type of thing that was intended to signal alternative interests. Although I'd argue that it was basically the 2020s equivalent of shopping at Hot Topic and listening to My Chemical Romance in the 2000s. I know some people are going to get defensive over that comparison, but come on. Nana literally had a collaboration with Uniqlo earlier this year. How much more basic could you get than a store known for selling basics? Now, I don't blame Yazawa for profiting off of her most popular series, but these licensing deals are an undeniable signal that Nana has achieved a certain level of commercialization that's hard to come back from, something that's only become more apparent with the recent Vivienne Westwood collaboration. Now, had I been given fair warning, I probably would have bought a few pieces from the collection, because I am a fan of both brands, and I like having pop culture history hanging in my closet. But I guess it just wasn't meant to be. Oh well, I'll survive. Now, I'm definitely in agreement that these weren't priced for casual shoppers, but Vivienne Westwood has been a higher-end brand for decades now, so I don't really know why it came as such a shock to people. Like, we knew that this wasn't an H&M collab. It seemed as though most fans were aiming to buy jewelry from the collaboration, not only because they were inspired by pieces worn by the actual characters in the manga, but because they were also the easiest to identify as being from Vivienne Westwood. Of course, people were trying to get their hands on the various orb necklaces, but some of the more unique items included the armor ring, the leather choker, and of course, the orb lighter. I saw some complaints that there weren't enough silver-toned pieces, which have historically been coded as more alternative and punk, but based off of what I saw on the website, the split looked pretty even. The more common criticism was that it isn't worth it because it's brass, but I personally don't subscribe to that line of thinking in general. For one, worth is completely subjective. It might not be worth it to you, but it might be to someone else. Some people buy $200 bottles of wine, others are completely happy with a $15 bottle. Neither person is wrong for having a preference and for having a price point they're willing to pay for that preference. Don't get me wrong, I would have preferred stainless steel myself as it's a lot more durable, but Vivienne Westwood has been making their costume jewelry out of brass for years now. Besides, it's pretty common knowledge that in the luxury space, you're not actually paying for the materials or for the design, but for the brand name and the status associated with that. That's why Chanel is able to sell their handbags for 200 times more than what it costs to make them. Similar critiques were directed at the clothing as well, with fans saying they were more hachi-coated, lacking the dark colors and leather often associated with Nana. But again, I think the split between styles inspired by the characters was pretty even. I just think people were expecting full-blown Nana cosplay, as opposed to high fashion pieces you could incorporate into your wardrobe and style as you want. I've seen a lot of people say, this collaboration is unfair to Nana fans, but at the end of the day, nobody is owed a designer necklace. Yes, it sucks to not be able to buy something that you want, but if you really, really want it, then why don't you set up a Google alert and find some way to get your hands on it in the future? Or is your interest so superficial that you already know that you're going to move on to something else in 6 months anyway? That need for instant gratification is why the Vivienne Westwood orb necklace got so heavily duped and oversaturated in the first place. Because there were all of these people desperate to wear a trendy piece of jewelry, but who didn't have enough respect for the designer to pay full price for it.
My thing as a fashion designer, I say buy less clothes. Keep wearing things that you've really chosen that you love, and that is status.
Both Nana and Vivienne Westwood were once hailed as subversive status symbols, but now they're being seen as sellouts, so the cultural capital that comes with them is starting to dissipate. People want to be able to say, the girls that get it, in order to position their tastes as superior. But the moment that thing becomes liked by the masses, suddenly it's too basic, too commercial, too normal, which in this day and age is a death sentence. Nana is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to manga, the same way that Vivienne Westwood is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to fashion. There's obviously nothing wrong with being a fan of either of them, but you have to understand that it doesn't make you special. And there's nothing wrong with that. You should like something because you like it, not because you like what it says about you.
The punk movement, I mean, it was just a fashion that became a marketing opportunity for people, and it's great nowadays to see young people dressed as a punk, but you know, because it's entered into the iconography of I am a rebel, and that's what I look like if I want to be that kind of rebel.
What are your thoughts on this whole Vivienne Westwood Nana collaboration debacle? That's it for this video, and I will see you next time. Bye!